Welcome to another episode of Talkin' Tone. I'll be your host, Dave Pops Clements. Very happy today to be on location in Emerson, New Jersey with the owner of DR Strings, Mr. Mark Dronge.
How you doing, Pops?
I'm fantastic. Thank you so much for having us.
You're quite welcome.
We've already done a little tour of the facility.
Yes.
And I got to tell you, it blows me away. You know, it's a family-run business.
It sure is.
Been in the family a long time?
Well, you have to say that it's not only in the family a long time, but it comes from the family. Basically, my father, Al Dronge, started Guild Guitars back in the early 50s, about 52. And I worked there from 60 to 68, 80, 83 to 86. And it was always his idea that he would like to have a string company because he had certain thoughts about the sound of strings and how they were being developed, how they weren't, how they matched Guild guitars, and how they didn't. And he always thought that was a very important element. And in 1989, I got an opportunity to start this, and we did. We went for it.
Did your father have some input at that time?
No, he had passed away 17 years earlier.
Wow.
But you know, he kind of lives with me. I hear him talking more than once. I've heard him talking to me.
That's fantastic. Yeah. I mean, you know, going back to Guild guitars, you definitely know something about tone. I mean, Guild guitars.
I hope so. I hope so.
We talked a little bit about a tone, you know, with your strings, and you know, in particular about I guess it's relatively new series, the neon fluorescent strings.
Yeah, well, neon doesn't go back that far, but it's kind of well established now. I believe it was 2010 that we started to produce it. And basically what neon is it's a very hard coating that we also use in non-colored strings. The neons have a dye in them or a pigment in them. I'm not sure which is the really correct statement, but the neons have done very well. They're a big part of our business. They haven't caught on like I would have thought, because you say, well, they have the same tone as a regular string. They might even be brighter. They certainly last longer than an uncoated string. And they look incredible. They just absolutely add a new dimension. And people somehow are very conservative in this business.
Well, you know, from a tech's point of view, I've been putting a lot of strings on a lot of guitars for a lot of years, and it was my first question. Really?
I don't think there certainly isn't a tonal loss. Do they have a distinct sound? I couldn't say they have a distinct sound, but you can't tell if it's a regular uncoated string or it's a neon string just by listening to it, unless you see it. And people have an assumption, just make an assumption. Well, you know, they look so flashy and they look so bright, they couldn't possibly sound good. Turns out they're actually a little bit louder than an uncoated string.
Well, you gave me for example. One of your Guild guitars, and
this one right here.
There it is, right there. And what year is this Guild?
Well, I'm not sure of the year, but it's definitely a New York Guild, so that dates it to pre-1960.
Right.
I'm guessing it's around 56, 57.
Right. And it's strung with the neons.
It's strung with white neon. We haven't tuned this guitar or touched this guitar between 6 and 8 months.
And I picked it up and played it.
Yep.
And it was in tune. I got to tell you, you know, this is something to be said for your strings.
Thank you.
Again, I use a lot of manufacturer strings. I work with a wide variety of artists. And I have to use whatever they use as an endorsement or whatever. So, but, you know, I've been working with Talkin. It's one of your endorsees.
Yep.
And using your strings, I got to tell you, you know, I put them on day in and day out. Especially, you know, I mean, not only, but the phosphor bronze, I'm a big fan of.
Right.
I can put them on the guitar, stretch them, tune them, stretch them, tune them, boom, they're on. I don't kill them.
That's great.
You know, they're right on, and they hold tune, you know, really. Even with temperature changes, we're doing theaters now, and some of the temperature's been 66 degrees, and then the curtain opens, and it goes to 72 and in midstream. And so most people will be scrambling. I'm not really finding myself doing that.
We hear this a lot. We hear they tune in and lock in very fast. I think, and one of the reasons we started the company was I think that the handmade element is incredibly important. I think a machine is set up to do one thing, do it well, do it quickly. The hand brings in the human element. And with music and making anything, I think the human element is really, really important. There are imperfections in wire. I don't care who buys what wire from what company, from the beginning to end of the spool. There are variations in that wire. You think, hey, the wire is being made by computers and machines, and it's perfect from beginning to end. You measure the tensile strength, the width, the depth of that wire from beginning to end. If you took 100 measurements, you get 100 different measurements.
Imperfections in diameter.
So small. But the human hand can feel that. Our workers take about 6 months to really be able to make a terrific string and be consistent. And during that time, unconsciously, they're feeling that difference. And they may not even be aware of it, but they are making slight adjustments all the time. And I don't think machines do that. And I think that's part of why our sound is what it is. The ease of locking into tune is what it is, and our tone is what it is. It's just, we think that way, we feel that way, and we've seen a lot of evidence that that's true.
Right. I like the personal touch with the manufacturing being done right out back. You took me out back, and the people, and Anthony was telling us about, you have a long, your employees last a long time. They work, there's not a high turnover rate of your employees.
No,
and that's,
thank goodness.
There's a lot to be said for that. Yeah. And someone that takes pride in their product.
Absolutely.
I mean, you have a lot of quality control. You're right out there looking at it. You're constantly looking at the strings. Whereas a lot of other manufacturers are just get them in, get them out.
There are people who make as many strings in a day as we make in like 6 weeks or 2 months. I mean, we never plan to be the biggest. We're not trying to be the most powerful. We just want to make a terrific product for those people who really can appreciate it and hear it. That's what it's about.
Well, I'm here to say I'm happy you are, because your product, in being the very best it is, makes my job a lot easier.
Thank you.
I mean, I'm over there stringing and stretching. If you hand it out, then a guy says, hey, what's going on? Why is this? Years I did studio projects where I sat right at the desk with the producers and the artist and literally track, tune, tune. And I mean, the string makes my job easier. And it makes the project sound great and such forth. Now, I have a series called Talkin that we're on, and actually Tark and I will be doing some tracking with his guitars, which will be featuring DR strings.
Oh, that's great.
So, hopefully in the future we could maybe do something to get a little more specific on tonal qualities in my videos.
Sure.
And, I'm kind of looking at more of a recording side of it.
Okay.
I think there's a little more critiquing in the recording side of things. And instead of just live, I know there's a lot of critiquing in live sound as well. But when you're doing something for a record project that's going to be heard, there's a little more you're listening for.
Yeah, there's also, there's not as many unknowns. Right. Whereas you're doing a live concert, the unknowns don't stop.
Right. Yeah. Let's talk about some of your clients. You got a pretty big roster of
yeah, we do.
Stars. We were talking about Derek Trucks earlier.
Derek has been with us for years and years, and of course, he's one of our absolute all-time favorites. I watched a concert he did last night. I think it was done in Connecticut recently. And he always amazes me. Absolutely. There's always something. Are you kidding me?
He's got the slide touch. It must come from the family, being around, the Almonds for so long. And
it's his own thing, and being with Susan Tedeschi and that relationship, I think, to me, he's really grown since they've been married.
Right.
But boy, last night, I've seen him do a lot of stuff. Last night, it wasn't just the tone. The creativity, what he was doing was so moving.
He's doing some other kind of stuff with the slide. I worked with a gentleman named Sonny Landreth. I don't know if you're familiar. I was with John Hyatt for a number of years.
Yep.
I watched Sonny, John used to refer to me as the other Rycooter.
Yeah.
And it's like he's doing all these crazy things. You go, what was that? Where'd that come from? How do you come up with that? And just the touch and the slide playing. And I've always been a huge fan of slide players. I was with Leonard Skinner a number of years, and Ricky Medlock playing slide and talking about his father. Shorty Medlock.
Okay.
You know, and there's a lot of, we could tell stories for days about some of these people, but other clients, you got some cool bass players on your roster as well.
Well, bass has really been the thing from the moment we started. Kind of instantly, bass players discovered us. I think before guitar players discovered us, actually. And I think it's because there's more material in the bass string. There's several windings, and depending on it's the first string, third, fourth, fifth, so on. You have layers of winding, and I just think that because there's more material, there's more opportunity to hear more about the tonal difference between what we do and what all the automatic machine companies do.
Right.
I may be right, I may be wrong, but it's just my feeling. And Marcus Miller was the very first person we ever had an endorsement with. We work with so many bloody people. I should say that, but we work with so many really, really great players. Sting found us at least 20 years ago,
Wow.
and it's been a solid thing. And we've tried to move him to different models. And this is it. Just leave me alone. Don't talk about anything. This is my string. This is my sound. I'm happy. There's great people in Europe like Etienne Mbappe, who's playing with who's he playing with? John McLaughlin. Etienne Mbappe in France plays with John McLaughlin. He's been here with John. There's just a whole host of them. Jeff Berlin has been a big fan of ours for years.
We have Andre Monger, our bass player with Josh Groban's, using your strings, and I just love him. And we've been working on his own signature series with Fender, and we finally got him a Fender bass. It's not his exact signature yet, but we're still working on it. But I think the DR strings are just so solid.
Oh, that's great.
And again, the longevity, and after stretching them, I go back to that. I mean, I've stretched many a string, and I look and I go, oh my God, it just looks dead.
I have to tell you a funny story about longevity and DR strings. We got an email from somebody in Canada. This a couple of years back. My son-in-law Anthony knows about this. And the guy said, "What happened to your strings? They just don't last like they used to." So I don't know. So we wrote back to him and said, "What's the problem?" He said, "Well, the last set I had lasted me a year and a half, and these only lasted me 11 months."
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
I hope we last that long anyways. As we were talking about, I'm getting on now and trying to divert my path a little bit, but I'm still going to be doing this forever. But, look, we really appreciate your time, and I think maybe we should get Tarek on, and maybe you could say a few words to Tarek, being he is the player.
Sure.
But maybe we can do something in the future. You know, maybe we can do something with tones and different string gauges.
Absolutely.
We could
different materials.
Yeah, we could talk for hours and get in depth on each string and diameters and waveforms and all that kind of stuff.
Core wire. That's another one.
There you go. That sounds like, when I ask people that are very knowledgeable about a subject, and I was telling Tarek, I worked with the Zappa family for a while.
Okay.
And Frank, only towards the end of his career, I primarily took the boys on their first tour, Dweezil and Ahmed. But there's a bass player named Scott Tunis.
Okay.
And talking about the word, you just mentioned one word, right? I recently said, hey, Scott, I'm learning Pro Tools, and I need to learn music theory. And he typed one word, triads. And most knowledgeable people on a subject will give you one word, and then that's it. That's all they say, and it's your job to figure out the rest. But thank you so much. We really appreciate it. And thank you for all your help in shipping us and taking care of us with strings, and we hope to do it again.
Our pleasure.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.